Welcome to the next episode, episode 10 of Word from Home by Start Somewhere Media, where we speak to artists, athletes, and creatives, allowing them to share their story to inspire the next generation to start somewhere. Today's episode features a very, very special guest, all the way from Las Vegas. I cannot believe I am speaking to him still. He's a 6-time Kickboxing World Champ, Combat Sport Hall of Famer, now president of Pro Fighters League, and my favorite kickboxer of all time, the big daddy of K-1, living legend Ray Sefo. My boy.
Hey, brother, I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you. I know how busy you are. Thank you for your time. I can't believe, from watching you on the school computers a decade ago at Patrician Brothers Blacktown on YouTube with my boys, Kingy and Tavita, to now meeting you. First and foremost, how are you and the family during these, unprecedented times, pandemic, civil tension, and now a newly elected president? How are you and your family?
Yeah, it is crazy times. The pandemic, the craziness that we're going through, and I guess it's somewhat a little bit easier knowing that the whole world is going through it. You know what I mean? And so, but no, we've been doing all the necessary things to stay healthy and not get caught up in, or get sick and whatnot. I've been very fortunate. A week and a half ago, our gym ended up closing down for a week because we had something like 8 to 12 guys tested positive for COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And so fortunately, just doing the right things, washing your hands, drinking a lot of fluids, lemon water kind of thing, boil hot water and add lemon, all those kind of things. We're just trying, stay hydrated and whatnot, making sure the kids wash their hands every time they leave the house and when they get back to the house, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just the normal things we should be doing that we've kind of over time taken for granted, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So just doing the basic stuff and staying healthy.
For sure. We still train at our gym at Blacktown at full force, and they it's actually more sanitary. It's actually good that we're actually cleaning everything down after the pads and the bags and everything after class. Because if you think about how those pads every day, you have them and then you pass it on to the next person. But it's much better that we are taking those precautions now. But yeah, so you train at Randy Couture's gym out in Vegas. How is it over there? I see that you're always, working out in the gym still. What's your day-to-day like?
My day before the pandemic, I'm normally at the gym from between 7:30, 8 o'clock to about 10:30. So, a couple of hours coaching. Mm-hmm. And then I'm in the office right after that till probably about 3:30. Then it's pro class and training for myself. Mm-hmm. And then it's I'm home by 5:36. You know what I mean? But since the pandemic, the routine is very similar. The only difference is that I actually get to work from home. So, you know what I mean? Like, for example, doing this interview with you, mm-hmm. I get to do it from home. And fortunately, it's Sunday. And Sunday is one of my rest days, which is a lot easier, as you know. We've kind of rescheduled this a few times. And, and then I woke up to double booking myself again. But all good, you know what I mean? Like, no complaints whatsoever. It is what it is. And so we all have to just kind of do the right things and do our part. And, I'm pretty sure that we will all come through this, by next year or the year after. Because I remember telling my friends that when this pandemic happened and the lockdown, I was like, we probably won't see normalcy for about 2 to 3 years. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm hearing things where some countries are locking down again, and you know what I mean. The spread of the coronavirus is getting out of hand again. So, for here in Vegas, it hasn't been too bad. But again, my circle is very tight in the sense of I leave the house, I go to the gym, I coach, I leave the gym and come back home. You know what I mean? That's kind of like pretty much the routine. And then because I work from home, that's the only kind of two places for the last 7 months.
There has been some silver linings to it. Do you think you've spent more time with your kids and your family a lot more and just, really try to embrace the times that we're living in now?
Yeah, the thing is, that is true, but my kids are at school. My son's at school. So the routine with him is exactly the same. The cool thing is because my daughter doesn't start kindergarten until next year. So I do get to see her, almost all day kind of thing, which is, it's still nice because it's just quality times you spend with your family.
For sure.
That being said, I always try and find that time. Plus, my wife is actually very active in the way of taking the kids out to the park, taking them up to the mountains and all that kind of stuff. So the kids still get to do, a few activities here and there.
No, that's good. That's good. Take us back to the very beginning of your Hall of Fame career. What made you actually fall in love with the fight game? So you were raised and born in New Zealand, right?
Right. I come from a boxing background. My dad boxed, my uncles and cousins, everybody in my family boxed. And so at the age of 5, my dad, gave me my first boxing gloves, and I would do pads with him, but not so much of pads, more him holding his hands up and taking me through, combinations and whatnot. And as a young kid, you just think, oh, wow, this is cool. You know what I mean? And at that point too, I didn't know that my dad used to box. I just thought what he was showing me was normal, right? And then I think it was when I was about 7 or 8, my dad rented a Bruce Lee movie and a Jackie Chan movie. I think the Jackie Chan movie was Drunken Master, and the Bruce Lee movie was Fist of Fury. And I just fell in love with the fact that, man, there's just these guys are throwing kicks and punches and elbows and knees, and they're using their heads like they were using every inch of their body, which was, for a 5-year-old, never seen that before. Was true. I mean, a 7, 8-year-old was truly amazing.
Yeah.
Because now for several years, for 3 years or so, I've just been kind of boxing, and I've seen boxing on TV. You know what I mean? And I just fell in love, and in my head, I was like, wow, I want to do that. And then by the time I was 12, 13, while I was at high school, I think it was, I started working as a milk boy, delivering milk. I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but in New Zealand, so the truck will slowly maneuver down the street, and my job was to run, grab the empty bottles, and replace it with full bottles of milk. You know what I mean?
Yep. It must have been like that back in the day.
Right. So it was really cool. And that's how I started martial arts, and continued from there. And I didn't fall in love with. I mean, I had already fallen in love with the seeing what I was seeing, but then when I started training, I was just completely, just so in love with what I was doing. Like I was learning how to kick and punch and whatnot.
What did you start? What martial arts did you actually start at before, like after boxing? Because your style is very technical and quick feet, and it's very different to what like a Pacific like a Samoan would usually fight. They would just have heavy hands, but your quick feet. Like, what was that martial art that you started?
Yeah, thank God I was blessed with speed as well.
Yeah.
I Kung Fu, Wing Chun Kung Fu was my first art. And a buddy of mine, a good friend of mine, took me along because he was already training. So he took me along, and I just fell in love with it. And the day I went, it was the day I joined. And so I did Kung Fu for 6 years. But in that 6 years, I never thought about competing. You never thought about fighting. And which was and part of that is because I think I was also very shy, because knowing fighting, because if you watch boxing and any kind of kickboxing that was on TV, it would be from the States, and there's thousands and thousands of people in the arena or in the stadium, right? So I think just that. But then the crazy thing about it was, when I thought about it later on in time, I started modeling when I was 6. So I was 16. I mean, so when I was walking out on the runway, I mean, that's pretty much what you're doing. You're in front of people all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I didn't know why I didn't really think about fighting. But when I got challenged to a fight, and that's how my career started, we went to a weigh-in, and this guy challenged me to a fight. And my heart was like, yeah, mofo, let's go, And my mind was like, what are you doing? This is not, you don't want to do this. So, I was conflicted a little bit, because up here was saying no, and my heart, and here was saying, come on, let's go. You know what I mean? And then I think 2 months later, the fight was set. Or should I say, no, a couple of weeks later, the fight was set. And then 2 months after that, I fought this guy. And I think he was 7-2 at the time, his record. I had never fought before. I dropped him in the second round. The thing was, when I first came out, I was booed because because the fight fans obviously never seen me before, right? Yeah. And I mean, the arena was only like, I want to say it was 1,000 people, something like that, or 1,300, right? And so I was booed, and everybody cheered for him. And then they saw that the differences in size. I think he was like 6'3". How
many kilos?
Say again?
How many kilos? What weight were you at this age?
I was 18.
Yeah.
I'm 17, 18, I think it was.
And you're about 100 or so kilos?
Who? The guy?
No, you.
No, I wasn't. I was. Yeah, no, I was. I want to say I was about, maybe 95 kilograms.
You were still light boy then.
Right. It was about 98. That's right. I was 98 kilograms, which was a little over 200 pounds.
Yep.
And I think he weighed in at, I want to say 225, 220. Anyhow, the fight happened. I dropped him in the second round. I went on to win the fight. And the crazy thing was that as soon as I dropped him, the crowd turned.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was because they realized that I was the new guy, the new kid on the block, number one. Number two, I was prepared to go toe-to-toe with this guy, right? And three, they have seen this guy 9 times prior to this. And so they, obviously regard him as a tough guy. And then there was then there was me, and I dropped this tough guy and won the fight. And then I was cheered, and you know what I mean? And and that was the first time that I'd ever been booed in my life.
And it was your first fight.
It was my first fight. And as soon as I dropped him, that changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. Like the feeling of
that feeling
being a winner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the people, how they now embraced me because I was prepared to go toe to toe. And but I got this, you know, I have Bronco to be thankful for, because he was the guy that actually challenged me to a fight, and he was the guy that actually started me on this path.
Yeah.
So, you know, my hat off to him, and because if he never had challenged me to a fight, I probably would never have competed, and my path would have gone another direction. Because at the time, because I remember asking the question to myself at the age of 15, what was I going to do in my life? You know? So at a very young age, I was already questioning these things. I mean, like, for example, when I was 9 years old, I made the decision never to drink alcohol, do drugs, smoke, or any of that stuff, because I had seen it around me a little bit. And because, you know, Samoan families love to party on the holidays. And I think it might have been a Christmas party or whatever it was. And my uncle, like, you know, my family, and one of my uncles, super, super nice guy. And I think around 8 o'clock or whatever it was, I walked into my room, and Ronnie and I, my brother, Ronnie and I, one of my brothers, shared the room. And I walked into my room, and my uncle was passed out on the bed, butt naked, right? And at 9 years old, I was like, why? You know, that was surprising to me, because he wasn't that kind of guy to kind of lose control, or ever being, you know, my whole life growing up, he was always the super nice guy, the level-headed guy kind of thing, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, so this is from alcohol, from him drinking. And so, you know, ever since then, I made this decision that I would never be like that. And so, you know, at a very young age, I was already making these decisions that it really kind of guided me through my path of martial arts, and where I am today.
And the discipline, yeah, for sure. I think when you're a kid, I think you look up to adults as, you know, some of them as your heroes and everything. And then sometimes you realize that they're very, some adults, when you grow up a bit, that they're quite vulnerable, and there's demons that they're fighting themselves, especially in like the Filipino and I'm Filipino, so the Filipino and Islander community. And when you see those things, you do need to change your life in that regard. So looking back, for you, I know you were a part of the glory days of K1 kickboxing. You're known as Sugarfoot for your fast and technical style. What was it like to be a part of those years, actually?
Honestly, those years competing in K1 against the best of the best was the most amazing years of my life. You know, the best years of my life. Obviously, that changed, you know, when the games came to an end and my kids came along, and completely, my kids fulfilled my life in that sense. And so, but yeah, no, going back to those days where, I mean, even today, Ernesto Hus, Peter Ertz, Sam Greco, and myself, we talk all the time via social media.
You guys are close.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, you know, the same thing I said about Mark Hunter when he and I went toe to toe.
Yeah.
I felt like I took a piece of him and he took a piece of me. And right after the fight, because Mark and I weren't that close. We kind of knew each other. We said hi. And just out of respect, we were both, you know, in K1 and whatnot. But we never really kind of got to know each other until the fight was over. I felt like we became more friends after that. And so I just, Mark had an amazing career, and I just supported him throughout. Every now and then I would text him to say best of luck and whatnot. And sometimes if he was fighting somebody that is known for their striking, I will reach out and just say, hey, listen, brother, this guy isn't the same level as you. You've been around the game a long time. So just little things like that. And I just feel like the same happened with Ernesto, Peter, Jerome Lebana, Sam Greco, Mike Bernardo.
Legends.
Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. Francisco Filo. Francisco Filo later became, after we fought, we became teammates in Japan, Francisco Filo and Glauber Feitosa and whatnot, who became really good friends of mine. But yeah, so to this day, we all stay in touch via social media, and every now and then we all talk about the glory days and how amazing those days were, because not only allowed us to do what we do, but just to be in that circle and being regarded as some of the best fighters in the world. And then we would go out to dinner together from time to time, or, to an after party or whatever it was. It was just truly amazing years of my life, and for them also. But yeah, no, it was, it really was truly amazing to experience all that. And just the journey is, has been and I thank the good Lord every day, because the journey has been a very blessed journey. Sure, we as human beings, we all go through ups and downs from time to time, but it's how you come out of that. Just like you're saying in boxing, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. And so those kind of things, really kind of nails it right of who, the times that we came through. But yeah, no, those years were golden years. I mean, I will take those to my grave with me, because they have, in so many ways too, it shaped my life where I am today.
Especially that Japanese crowd. That Japanese crowd is something different. They're well educated when it comes to fighting.
Right.
I think there was a throwback of a MMA, a UFC fight that just happened. That happened out there, and it was quiet at the start of the fight, and then one shot, and then they know when to cheer, and the cheer is different to any other crowd around the world. So what was that like out in Japan?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. For example, the Tokyo Dome holds about 70 to 80,000 people, and you could hear a pin drop in there. But as soon as there was like some amazing, crazy action going on, you just hear this rock, and then it goes quiet again.
Yeah, it goes quiet again.
And then it goes, so it's been, they're amazing fans. The amazing thing about the Japanese fans, and I love the Japanese people, is that they're so loyal that it doesn't matter how you win or lose. They just want to see this samurai spirit in every athlete being displayed. And so they'll just love you forever. And it's just truly amazing to kind of get that love from them. But also K-1 became so big, because it was in about 144 countries around the world.
Yeah.
To the point where, and this is the funny thing, New Zealand, like every time I would go back, I mean, this is earlier in my K-1 career, when I would go back to New Zealand, people knew who I was, but they didn't really, New Zealand's very conservative, you know what I mean? And so they're, hey, Ray, how you doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then I go to different countries around the world, and you're getting mobbed, and people, you know what I mean?
In Japan.
And of course, it kind of told me how, I didn't realize at that point, but it told me how, but when I was going, it didn't matter where I was, whether it was in Germany or France or Romania or Sweden or wherever it was, right? Who were getting asked to sign autographs and take pictures with everybody. But yeah, no, that's when you realize how big K1 was at the time. You know what I mean?
And that's before social media. That's before
right.
YouTube. You know,
right.
YouTube was just coming around, and you guys were that famous, so people had to watch you on TV, and it was different. Could you imagine if you were fighting today with social media?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, your follower count, everything.
Yeah, no, it would be absolutely crazy. It's again, social media didn't come out earlier enough, but it's kind of cool because I mean, just imagine how much because for me, like, I like to be engaged with the fans.
I see that,
and so when I post something and they all answer or say something, I always feel like
I say that.
Yeah. So I try the best I can to reply to everybody.
You're a legend for that. I'm glad to see these throwbacks coming out. The one of you, I was thinking of a few weeks ago. I saw it, the throwback of you with Marvin Eastman, where you knocked him out after the fight when he wanted to go you again after the fight. And then I'm glad that went back and went viral and it was being reposted from Glory Kickboxing. Classic.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my good friends, Solo Ayeti, who was here, we were here last night. Jay Haran, Solo, and Lee. We were watching the fights last night.
Yep.
UFC, and that post came up again and again and again. And Solo's like, yeah, I remember this fight because when I was, he was in the military for 10 years, and he was touring in Iraq, and he said that's where he remembered that fight was that when I came back from a mission, they would put it on and watch that fight over and over again. So, I mean, the K1 was showing all over the world. It's just crazy how big a phenomenon that they became, that K1 became.
For sure. Looking back, what was the most challenging part of your career or in life in general where you may have felt a bit lost, or it was just, your hardest times?
Yeah, I think the most challenging times was there were a few times throughout the year I would have an amazing year, but every time it came to the Grand Prix, especially the last 3, I think it was, I was always sick, like 2 weeks out or a week out from the Grand Prix. And it wasn't until later, when it was all said and done, that I realized that I didn't really take all the precautions. Like I think if I had to go back, I would try and get educated with nutrition and all that kind of stuff, because I was illiterate when it came to that. Didn't really know much about it. Didn't really think too much about it. I just thought, you eat and you eat your food and get all your vitamins and so on, and that was that. And sure, I took vitamin C from time to time. Sometimes I would go to see the doctor and get a B12 shot, that kind of stuff. But I realized later in time that wasn't enough. I needed to educate myself in terms of like taking vitamin D and vitamin C and all the different vitamins that I needed to keep my body fit and healthy. Because every day, we're training 6-7 hours a day, and the body's getting run down and whatnot, and just losing a lot of the vitamins that's necessary to keep your body going. And so I think the toughest times were not being able to compete in the Grand Prix 100%. But hey, listen, no regrets. You learn, and obviously it was a little late, but it is what it is, and and you can kind of continue down the path and and probably, like, for example, my kids who love sports, you know, my little 5-year-old, my daughter's like constantly asking me to hold pads for her.
That's good.
My son who does, you know, jiu-jitsu and kickboxing with me.
Yep.
So, you know, these are things now, because I'm now caught up with it and educated with it. Now I can teach them, you know what I mean? So it is what it is, but no really hard times, you know what I mean?
That's good.
It's part of life, you know, part of life, we run into, you know, difficult times here and there, but who doesn't have that? You know what I mean? And so we just got to kind of bite down, put it down to experience and move forward.
That's for sure. And I'm sure, like, right now, nutrition and like rest and recovery, the science behind all of that, you would see it at your own gym with all the fighters that are in different organizations.
Right.
The rest and recovery and the science behind it and all the knowledge that everyone has, the education. Imagine if you had that, the way fighters rest these days and recovery with the ice and with cryozone, all that.
It's amazing. I mean, like, even just because, you know, I coach a lot of fighters, and when we go to the UFC PI, that facility is so equipped with everything in terms of what a fighter needs. And all these fighters, I mean, they get their meals prepared, they get their vitamins prepared. Like, it's just so awesome to see how far the game has come and how far knowledge has come in getting that athlete 100% ready for fight night. You know what I mean? And so just seeing that is, sometimes I'm envious, if you will, because I'm like, man, I wish I had that in my prime. You know what I mean? But, you know, I think that's we did is it made us stronger. It made us mentally tough.
You guys were definitely different.
Right.
You guys were built different. Over in the 90s and 2000s, you guys were built different. It was all hard work. You guys didn't know about the rest and recovery. You know, you're probably around the same age as kind of like Kobe. You know, it was all hard work. Kobe Bryant, like, all hard work. There's none of that. Everything was fed to you. I'm 27 now. This age, they've got everything. They got all the education. They got online.
Oh yeah.
Everything's given to them. So.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, look at the internet. It's so anything now, you just go bing, 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 and you have the answer. Like, it's so amazing how technology and knowledge of pretty much anything in the world today, you can get on this thing that's sitting in front of me.
On your phone, you can be outside on your phone. And everything's there. Yeah. You're seen as one of the pioneers of, you know, Australia, New Zealand fighting, alongside your good friend that you spoke about, Mark Hunt, who you had that crazy war with. How does it feel to have set that path for all the champions in MMA coming out today from this part of the world?
It's humbling. I mean, it's such an amazing feeling. It's a humbling feeling. It's good to be part of something. You know, I remember as a kid watching movies, watching Superman, watching Star Wars, you know, all the Marvel things as a kid, cartoons and whatnot, Batman. I used to dream as a young kid that I wanted to be like that, you know? I wanted to be something, not knowing that that was the path that I ended up in, that I was able to inspire, you know, certain people or people with not only my fighting, but also my fighting spirit, if you will, because I would get emails or letters, fan mails and whatnot, and people would tell me these, oh, thank you so much for showing us your mental strength, and that really helped me get out of hospital. Like, all these little things, it's just, you know, so it's really humbling to be able to inspire somebody, because listen, I'm not perfect. You know, I've made mistakes along the way, but that's what being a human is you make mistakes and you got to try and learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
But just to know that my work inspires certain people, it's really humbling and um, you know, and I'm so thankful that I was able to do, or being blessed with the talent that allowed me to kind of inspire other people, not only fighters, but also just normal people that
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the strength to do something. And then just from my work, they were able to do that. You know what I mean? So it's, no, I'm forever grateful. And of course, like I said, I thank the good Lord every day that I'm blessed with something that allows me to inspire people to be stronger and also continue their own journeys.
That's true, definitely. I have to thank you. You know, I've I like seeing how you become just from a fighter to an executive to the president of Pro Fighters League. Like, I want to get into the business side of not just fighting, but just the business side of something. And you
Right.
inspire me in that way. Especially, I grew up with my friend, a lot of Samoans and Tongans and everything
Right.
around this area, and I don't think it's they don't have in their head that they can be a president of a big organization just like yourself. But now, you know, you're living proof of that. And people like myself and people around this area, they definitely can see and say that it is possible to do those things and dream and really get, you know, start somewhere just here,
Right. Right.
get to where you are right now. So I got to say thank you for that. But in regards to these champions from this area, I saw you were with, I watched Carlos Ulberg's fight on Dana White's Contender Series this week, and he was with Izzy and Brad Riddell. Izzy has spoken countless times in the interviews I've watched, and he always brings up your name. You know, he
Right.
always brings up Ray Sefo. You know, we've got fighters out in New Zealand and Australia that and he will talk about the level of kickboxing out here in Australia and New Zealand is a different level to the US. What do you think of it now? Because you train these guys out now. What do you think of the level of kickboxing from out here in Australia and New Zealand to over there in the US? Has it caught up?
Um, I think a little bit it has, because you know Australia and New Zealand, the kickboxing in the in the Western world is a little bit different than the traditional Muay Thai.
Yep.
Where kickboxing in New Zealand, Australia, we focused a lot on our hands as well as our feet, but um, there was more emphasis on combining the two together and allowing the body to move in a way where your hands and feet was well coordinated, and then you would use your hands to set up your legs, and you would use your legs to set up your hands. And Lolo Himuli was, he was our coach and master back in the day, and I mean, like he's like one of the greatest minds in the game, honestly, because he could analyze and just from top to bottom, he would dissect the actual fight and break it down where like piece by piece. It was just watching him or listening to him talk or describe something like that. So yeah, no, part of that is because the coaches from back home in New Zealand and Australia, they weren't. And I mean, I could just speak for Lolo, because Lolo wasn't just focused on just boxing or just kickboxing. He focused on combining the two together, which is the same thing that I do. I've learned so much from him, and also I've learned how to coach in a very similar way. I mean, like there are things I've taken from Wing Chun, Kung Fu, and combined it into the way I throw punches, in kickboxing or boxing. And so, yeah, you know, just like we say, Bruce Lee was well ahead of his time. I felt like in our team back home, we were, you know, we were ahead of our time in the sense, also I said, Lolo was ahead of his time in terms of the way he would put things together. And so, of course, being under that kind of influence allowed me to not only take all that, but also add my own ingredients into forming that, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, no, definitely. There is a. I agree with Izzy. There is a difference, but I think kickboxing in the U.S. have now, especially with K1, and then the growth of MMA. Because if you look at MMA today, to 10 years ago, even
different.
It's night and day. You know, everybody that knows how to strike now knows how to defend a takedown, now knows how to scramble, get back on their feet. Everybody that could only wrestle or do jiu-jitsu now know how to strike, know how to knock people out and throw kicks and whatnot. So the growth of the game and the evolution of the game have grown so much that the knowledge worldwide, you know, has expanded so much that you see so many great fights, whether it's PFL, UFC, Bellator, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because these athletes are continually to grow and learning more and more.
For sure. How did you transition from your last fights to become an executive on World Series of Fighting, or you're president now to Pro Fighters League? How did that transition occur?
Once K1 filed a bankruptcy back in the day, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I knew that part of my journey was coming to an end. And so now the thing was, 9 months prior to the day where I committed myself to saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my own fight league. 9 months prior to that, I had already been, you know, throwing this idea around in my head. And it wasn't until I think it was a Friday night when I did an interview, and throughout that interview, something clicked. And so I called a friend of mine, you know, the very next day, which was a Saturday. And after training, I caught up with him, had breakfast, and I just told him I wanted to start my own fight league. The funny thing is, he was like, well, great, you know? So we kind of like, within a week, we put a few things together, and within a week we had offices, and that's how, you know, that's how WSOF was born. And then the format, you know, that we do with now that PFL, the league, that's exactly the format I wanted to start WSOF with. But there were a few things that happened that didn't allow us to do that. So when later, you know, when our team at PFL, Don Davis and everybody else that's involved in the team, that allowed us, when they came on board with WSOF and bought it out, it allowed us to do the actual format, what I had in mind to start WSOF with. And just because, you know, we wanted to be different, because, you know, everybody that's around, sure, they're great promotions they put on great fights. Like I said, Bellator, UFC, the little shows, but we wanted to be something a little bit different. And so putting the format together, and people would ask, well, how did that come about? But it's really from my K1 days.
For sure, that's what I was about to say.
Really from those days where taking that format and putting it into American way of sports, where there's a regular season, playoffs, and then the championship. Where K1, for example, you fought throughout the year, you qualify for the top 16. The top 16 match off against each other. The winning 8 then goes to the Grand Prix, where you fight 3 times in one night. And so we kind of, that was kind of very similar how we did it, but I kind of taken my own experiences and put it into American way of sports, and it's worked really well.
And it's growing. It's going to grow. It's going to get bigger.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. I think the feedback from the fans have been very positive from the fighters. Because it allows the fighters to be in charge of their own destiny, their own careers. Because I don't select who fights for the title. They do by winning.
Sure.
And so you continue to win. You eventually get to the World Championship bout and the $1 million.
Personally, I've always wanted and have seen myself, moving out to LA, or just, I'm just waiting for that right opportunity. So I'm intrigued how you moved your life from New Zealand and now living, your dream out in Las Vegas. When did you move from New Zealand to Las Vegas?
My first time, I came to visit my brother, one of my older brothers, back in '93. And then between '93 and '96, I think I was going back and forth for about 3 years, and then decided to live here full time. And so I was in Cali for I want to say 11 years. So I've been out here. I've been in the States for a little over 25 years now.
Oh wow.
And so I lived in Cali for about 11 years, and then moved out here to Vegas.
So you're doing your training camps and everything for K1 out there?
That's right, yeah. So sometimes we would have camp in Vegas, or California when I was living there, and then other times we would have it in Japan, in Tokyo.
Wow. I know in a few weeks, Roy Jones versus Tyson. What are your thoughts on these legends fighting? Were you ever approached by Tyson's camp to be a part of it? I see you hitting pads and you're still looking quick as ever.
Right. I mean, listen, they're both legends of the sport. It's promoted as an exhibition, but the thing is, from my own experiences, not only doing exhibitions, also as a couple of exhibitions, and watching or have seen some exhibitions, they really don't turn out to be, the
exhibitions.
Once there's a hard shot here and there, he's gonna want to get it back, and then it just gets, and it'll just continue to go from there. So I think if they were to say, hey, let's, if they at the back before they walk out, they're like, we know what we're doing. It's an exhibition. It's just about skills and talent. Let's see what we can, let's give them a show and whatnot. But if that's not happening, I think somebody's getting knocked out.
Yeah, it is quite a danger. I've talked about it on one of my other podcasts. It's going to be dangerous. I don't know how Mike Tyson goes into an exhibition fight.
Well, but yeah, like you said, he's looking sharp. He's looking fit. And some of the footage that I've seen of Roy Jones, he seems like he's very focused, and he's taking this really seriously.
That's true.
So I don't know. I hope that nobody gets seriously hurt.
Me too.
They're up there in age.
Yeah.
They're not old. They're just old for fighting, if you will. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But we'll wait and see.
Ray, as much as you inspired kids like myself and many others growing up through kickboxing, and more so now in the business world, as we spoke about earlier, who are the people that inspired you?
That's a good question, because I I kind of took, like, I don't really think I would. I kind of took just little things from everything in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't one particular person that I thought about as an inspiration.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I think from watching movies, I took little bits from, for example, like I said, Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I took little bits from, like, Sugar Ray Leonard is one of my favorite boxers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I took bits from him. That being said, I mean, listen, I love every other boxer that were great boxers back in the day. You know, when you look at it, there's so many greats. You know, the likes of Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran. I mean, the list goes on, right? So, sure. So there wasn't one person that I looked to for inspiration. Like, even in my team, like, you know, I took bits from Lolo Himuli, who was my coach. I took bits from some of my teammates, what they did, and so there was. I think I just kind of picked people's brains from
for sure.
Along the way. I mean, you know, I get inspired from with my partners, how they've become successful businessmen and created a wealth for themselves, you know, coming up. And so I think I've taken different pieces along the journey from every aspect of life and kind of inspired myself with it and you know, and just continue to move forward.
I see you training Islam. How's he going for next week's fight? And I see you have a friendship with Khabib and their camp. What did you think of his most recent fight as well with Justin? And do you think that's his last fight?
Khabib and Justin's are you know, they're friends of mine, and obviously, you know, I wish them the very best when they were faced off against each other. Mm-hmm. You know, it's because it's different when you're emotionally invested into to people when they're your friends. You know what I mean? Sure, so, definitely. And especially when they're facing off against each other, you just don't know. You know what I mean? And it's different. But they were fighting other people. You just go, yeah, Justin's gonna take this, or Khabib's gonna take this.
Like Tony Ferguson.
Right. And so, you know, when that happened, I was actually, you know, obviously very neutral and just wish him the best. And I think it turned out to be a great fight. In terms of Islam, I mean, I've only started working with Islam in the last 4 weeks, but man, okay, super talented, you know, super talented. The way he strikes, very easy to coach. You know what I mean? Again, all these. I mean, like, I have a couple of other Russian fighters that I work with, like Maga, who's also has a fight coming up December 10th, and you know, Ali Asab, like, just different guys, and they're just super talented. There's a massive wave of Daghestani and Russian fighters that's taken the world by storm in the last 5 years. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. And so I get the opportunity, and very fortunate to be able to coach some of these guys. And mentor these guys. In terms of Islam, he's ready to go. You know what I mean?
He's up next.
Yeah, that's right. Next week.
He's up next.
You know, he did his last sparring. He did 5 rounds of sparring, and then he did 5 rounds on pads with me, and still looked sharp,
clean.
You know what I mean? He's ready to go.
That's good.
The question in regards to Khabib, would he fight again? I really don't know. I actually thought, when his dad passed away, I actually thought that he probably was done.
Okay.
But then, but I was surprised that when it was announced that he was going to defend his title against Justin.
Yeah.
So that was, and of course that was cool to see, and he was successful in that. But then he made his mom, like everybody else that's watched the fight that night, he made up his mom a promise that he would retire after this one fight, and that would be it. Khabib has always been a very true to himself kind of guy. So I don't know, he might feel the itch again at some point. I remember seeing an interview in regards to, Dana did an interview, and he said that he did talk to him and that he was very emotional on the night that he retired. So there's really, nobody really knows if he would or wouldn't, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But as for now, I think he's retired.
I wish him well. Personally, I hope he does come back to get that 30. Maybe GSP, maybe GSP, but definitely. Well,
I personally, to be honest with you, I don't want him back. No, I don't want him because I like to see, because he's created and has such an amazing legacy.
Yeah.
To go out at his prime, to be undefeated, to be world champion, to make all the money that anybody can make. I personally don't want to. I don't want to see no, mark there. You know what I mean? Because that's a picture perfect career.
For sure, I get what you mean.
And so, for my own selfish reasons, I want him to be that picture perfect fighter that walked away with millions of dollars, walked away with his title, walked away being undefeated. I want to see him go down in history as that guy. You know what I mean?
As one of the GOATs, and didn't hold on to it, because some fighters they don't know. A lot of fighters, they don't know when to call it quits.
Right, exactly. So for my own selfish reasons, I like to see him do that. Because, just because nobody's done it. And sure, if he retired before he became world champion or whatever, right? He still didn't really complete his goal. You know what I mean? Because the goal for every fighter is to become world champion. That's the goal, right? If that's not your goal as a fighter, then you shouldn't be fighting. You know?
Yep.
So to see him compete against the best of the best in the division, beat the best of the best in the division, become world champion, defended his title numerous times,
and the money
and everything else, the fame.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to his manager. I mean, like, the guy makes $500,000 an appearance. If he appears somewhere, I mean, like, just to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of, like, again, like I said, as for my own selfish reasons, I want to see him still be that superstar like that.
For sure.
And go down in history as that guy. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because that completely changes everything if he comes out and he loses one.
Yeah, it does. There's a little blemish. Yeah, definitely.
So I want to see him to be that guy, because no one's ever done it again in that sense, you know. And so again, I like to see him stay retired.
As a friend, the most dominant. I think he's the most dominant fighter to ever go into the UFC.
Absolutely,
because nobody was close.
That's right. I mean, I'm trying to remember if it was Dana that said it or a reporter that said it, but apparently throughout his whole career, Khabib only lost 1 or 2 rounds.
Yeah.
In a fight or in a title fight. So I mean, just that's
dominant.
That's a dominant performance. Or a dominance throughout your career. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, for my own selfish reasons, I want him to be this, picture perfect champion that retired for, and it's I think when it's so good to kind of even get that too, because there'd be a lot of fighters going to be inspired to like try and get to that kind of status, or
sure.
or the dream to kind of continue to go down that path. I mean, Laura and I were talking about it, I want to say a few years ago now. When I went to K1, I was undefeated with 5 world titles.
Yeah.
And I think I was 21 or 22-0 at the time. Of course, my first loss was against Mr. Hoos, one of the legends in the game. But that was the first time I'd experienced loss.
But you did knock him down.
I couldn't wait to get back in there, right?
Yeah.
But again, I've lost throughout my career and won throughout my career. But Khabib is undefeated.
Undefeated.
And undefeated as the best of the best to do it. You know what I mean?
And he didn't pick and choose his fights like some other. He fought the champions at the top. He didn't pick and choose.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. He fought everybody. And that's what makes him great.
I know we've gone over time, Ray. One last question for yourself. What's next for you and Pro Fighters League at the same time for your career in life, or what's coming up for you?
We have PFL this season 2021.
Yep.
We made an announcement last week when the first show will be back. It will be April 15th. Same format. Obviously, for us as the world we know it today is no fans in the arena, so it's catered for TV, so that the world at large can watch.
What channel will that be on for you? What channel will that be shown on? Is that ESPN out there?
Yes, that's ESPN here in the States and pretty much worldwide. I'm not exactly sure what the other networks that carries that same feed, but talking to our attorney, I believe we have about 100 plus countries around the world that's signed, onto to carry PFL throughout the world.
Yeah.
So April 15th is the first show back, and then the season will commence the way it normally is, and the regular season, playoffs, and championship.
Beautiful.
It would be good to kind of get back into that. We just had a conference call last week, and how everybody misses, the action behind the scenes and the show and the fighters and everything else that goes into putting that together. So the team is ready to get back to work.
Hopefully everything comes after this election. I have this theory in my head: after the election, everything's going to start getting back to normalcy with the coronavirus. It's my little thing.
Well, funny enough, I was watching the news day before, was it yesterday or day before yesterday? And they said that there was over 100,000 new cases already in one day, I think it was. So, they did say that by winter there's going to be a second wave of the coronavirus combined with the flu. So.
Oh man!
Everybody out there, make sure you you keep you take your vitamins and everything else, stay warm and all that kind of stuff. Sure. Lucky for you guys are coming in the summer.
Yeah, we're in summer. We're in summer now, and 0 cases in New South Wales today and yesterday as well. So I think we're in Australia.
You guys are lucky.
Yeah, I think everyone's listening and trying to follow the rules and not doing their own.
Right.
Ray, I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you for doing this and taking your time. I know how busy and, like we've talked about how you've got so much going on. Kobe Bryant was is my favorite player of all time in basketball. One of my heroes.
He's a legend.
I say a legend. And, people say they say never to meet your heroes, they'll disappoint you, right? But you've been everything from just messaging me back. I'll get hyped. I'll screenshot it and show to Vita. I'll be like, bro, Ray Sefo commented back to me, just little things like that. Now I'm actually talking to you and meeting you. It's been surreal. I hope to meet you one day when I go out to Vegas, when everything's eased up and borders are closed. I definitely will. When I go to Vegas, I got a reason to go out to Extreme Couture.
You make sure you hit me up when you're out here.
For sure, and I'll meet you out there. We can do this again. I'll do something like this again. We'll go hang out. But I do want to just say thank you so much. If you guys want to follow Ray on his handles, it's at Sugar Ray Sefo to stay up to date on his dream life, on everything Pro Fighters League. And yes, I do want to just say thank you. I'm your host, Jam Laquian. Thank you for watching. Make sure to watch and subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Start Somewhere Media and on Instagram and Facebook. Once again, K1 legend, Ray Sefo.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.